Morning, Paul. It's Wednesday, the 23rd of November. Here's the heads up brief for today.
Okay, great. Thanks, Uday. Go ahead. I'm driving, so sorry if there's a bit of background noise. I'm zipping up the freeway towards Bangkok and I've just come out of a massive rainstorm. Go ahead.
Sure, no worries, Paul. So, in Malaysia, Paul, police in Malaysia are setting up roadblocks at strategic locations nationwide. This is over concerns that ethnic tensions could escalate. Now, the king invited 30 MPs from the Barisan Nasional coalition today to gauge whether they support Anwar Ibrahim or Muhyiddin Yassin. But Barisan Nasional asked to delay today's meeting as it does not want to support either and it wants to remain in the opposition. So the political deadlock is still there, and we're still waiting to see what will come out today. And this is not helping the tensions. Some Malaysians are questioning why there were even elections in the first place.
Yeah, well, look, it's very interesting. I mean, it's quite a wise move to stay in the background because whoever forms the coalition is going to be all parties and all the MPs are going to be accused of double standards. Um, it's a real backward step, this election for Malaysia. There's no clarity on leadership. But this evidences that democracy, when not formed for the good of the people and only judged as if it is a perfect democracy, and the basis of the forming of that, the political parties, the power bases that contest these elections, people are failing to see that this isn't a real democracy. There's some very sinister people in politics in Malaysia, a lot of greed, a lot of ambiguity by design. And the people that think kingdoms aren't democratically elected, thank God in Thailand and Malaysia you have them because they are the only bastion of normality. So this does not bode well. I mean, it's been a long time in Malaysia since serious conflict was predicted by the Chinese, Indian, and Malay populations. Ultimately, the whole Prabhumi thing, people of the earth was designed to give unfair advantage and an over degree of protectionism to the indigenous Malay communities. But on the other hand, that means you're holding back talented people of Indian and Chinese heritage. It's the whole reason Singapore Chinese predominantly split off from Malaysia and left to their own devices without the intermingling of all this nasty Malay-based politics, were able to develop one of the smartest and advanced nations on earth. So this is a massive backward step, a very predictable one. But where the coalition formation is going to go, what is in ultimately a hung parliament, and what is going to have so many concessions made by everybody that the poor society levels and the middle class Malaysians just want someone managing their economy. It wasn't that long ago you've got Razak and his Attorney General standing up going, just go back to work, everyone. Okay, $1 billion was found in my personal account. That's no big issue. Can you go and focus on your roles in society? So, I mean, Malaysia is showing Malaysia is indeed truly Asia. And many countries would be embarrassed and starting to look inwards, not Malaysia today. It's just the people squabbling for power, power for money, money for greed. It's horrendous. Malaysia and Indonesia sound very similar in that aspect. Sorry to bang on there, mate.
No worries, Paul. That was very interesting. Moving over to Thailand, Paul, an unnamed source within the Palang Pracharat party was apparently quoted saying that 40 MPs will leave the party. He also said that Prayut may also leave. We're keeping a close eye on this to make sure it's not, the usual rumors of a rift between Prayut and Prawit.
Well, interestingly, mate, that the unnamed source may be identifiable tomorrow because he may be hanging upside down from a tree in a lifeless motion because if it's true and if it's leaked. There's only one reason it would have been, and that is if Prelude had instructed it. Otherwise, the nameless guy will be named, perhaps not publicly tomorrow, but he will be more than publicly shamed. I'd suggest that would be a good outcome if he was publicly shamed. But I think it is an interesting machination that that's occurred. And yeah, keep a close eye on that to the point that if something comes out relevant to that, please update me with a direct WhatsApp call. I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll do that, Paul. In Thailand's deep south, one police officer was killed and 30 were injured. 30 people were injured in a car bomb that targeted a police residential complex in Narathiwat. This is a relatively big attack. Moving over to
Yes, well, hang on, mate, hang on. Naritawat is obviously one of the real hotspots in the southern Thailand conflict, where there's been, tens of thousands of people killed over the last, say, 3 decades or so. That even by some of the complex operations that occur there, 27 multiple attacks in a 24-hour period, 12 banks attacked in an hour. But even by some of those complex operations that occur of late, that one is a significant one. And obviously, we've got clients going to Hadyai. Now, Hadyai is often perceived as being fine, being a large airport and being, a bastion of sanity in the south. But large hotels in Hadyai, nightclubs, markets, anything that represents a little bit of economic wealth has been attacked. So we need to keep a lookout on that, particularly on that Naritawat one, on how that could lead to potentially further destabilising of what is already a very long and very protracted and very intense conflict. So thanks for drawing that to my attention.
Yeah, sure, Paul. We'll keep an eye out also.
Mate, just on that, we've got a client going there early December, so we need to really just BF keeping a close eye on that, brief the relevant analysts.
Yep.
Of the significance of that Naritawat attack. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do that. Paul, in Indonesia, 46 illegal gold miners were arrested by the police in Manokwari, West Papua, in an operation that started on November 18th.
Well, that's very interesting. That's the pot calling the kettle black, isn't it? I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, obviously we're releasing a very sensitive report tomorrow on police corruption and on their role in illegal mining in Papua, but because it's suddenly been in the media, the hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more, I don't remember the exact statistics, but an obscene amount of money that is being pilfered by the supposed judicial implementers of the nation at the perils of actually having legal mining for which the whole country benefits, as opposed to the people that are supposed to impose the law. It's incredible that a bit of media and then suddenly 46 poor people that are picking up gold as instructed by their masters, who are the same guys that are arresting them, suddenly fighting a PR battle to try and deflect and deceive and whack up an insignificant smokescreen. Horrendous piece of deflection and hypocrisy, and shows everything that is bad about the Indonesian judicial system and the horrendous nature of their pay for my position, so I need to make money now. The horrendous greed, the high-profile murders being conducted by the police, the attacks on the Anti-Corruption Commission to make sure the police continue their modus operandi of horrendous guilt, greed, and the most complex of all mafias, just without any operational security, such as the toxic arrogance of them. And it's just an embarrassment to that nation, and a great concern that the parliamentarians are such inclined and they're not willing to do anything about it for the sake of appearing somewhat to be hypocritical. critical, I would imagine. Okay, Uday, thank you.
Yeah. Lastly, in Southeast Asia, Paul, in the Philippines, authorities have warned travelers of fake electronic arrival card websites that make people pay for the card to enter the Philippines. The card is free and it can be applied for from the legitimate website, but there's a bunch of fake websites circulating.
Okay, thanks a lot. That's a classic Philippines right there. Why work when you can scam?
Yeah. Moving over to South Asia, Paul, regarding the elections in Nepal, no party is looking to form a majority. The results are still coming in, and there's a lot of politicking that's going on at the moment. But it seems that the incumbent government is going to be in power.
Okay, that's interesting. Has there been much violence in the last day or two?
Uh, Paul, earlier this week there was at least one or two people killed and dozens injured across the country, but it's quieted down over the last day. But we're keeping a close eye out on this because it could pick up when the results are finally declared.
Okay, thanks.
Paul, in Pakistan, November 26th is the important date. That's when Imran Khan said he will unveil the next step of his plan. He'll be in Rawalpindi at that point.
All right, thank you.
Lastly, Paul, in the EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa region, French authorities have warned of power cuts in the winter from next month. They claim it won't last more than 2 hours. Of course, this comes amidst the energy crisis. And in the UK, there's more strikes against the cost of living crisis in the transport sector. This includes the rail, maritime, and bus unions.
Well, it wasn't that long ago a comedian stood for power in Ukraine by stating he will sit down with Russia and come up with an amicable agreement. And suddenly he flies to Washington, D.C. after he's elected, changes all his tack. NATO tried to expand. Russia sees it as a non existential threat. And then France suddenly has power crises. It wasn't even that long ago that the former presidents of France and Germany pointed out that if NATO expands, Russia will see that as a non existential threat on their border and he will attack. And despite the Minsk agreements and despite very clear warnings, one superpower based on just sort of south of Canada and north of Mexico helped to train troops in the Ukraine, which contributed to the belief that there's an existential threat being built on the Russian border. And suddenly Europe now is having troubles getting energy and certainly getting affordable energy. It's amazing how things can transpire and it's amazing who can be behind them, and it's amazing how easily the Western world can be deceived by supposed media that is professional and objective and has standards. And is it a puppet? It's also amazing how the West thinks that China and Russia alone manipulate their people's minds.
Yeah, Paul, I'd agree with you on those points there. Um, that's the heads up brief for today. Any closing comments from you, Paul?
No, mate, that's great. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Have a nice day.